Welcome to Elevation Nation with your hosts Sam Panich and Parker Yablon. Elevation Nation is a community focused on bringing together young adults who are elevating themselves and others every day. Each week, we welcome a new elevator to share their story and experiences to help you conquer the real world.
Family tonight, at least my extended fraternity family, because we have my grandbig on the podcast joining Elevation Nation. Uri Pearl, it's great to see your face, man. How the heck are you? Welcome to Elevation Nation.
It's great to see you guys. Been way too long. I'm doing well. And yeah, my grand little man, I can't believe we let this much time pass before, seeing each other's faces. And you too, Parker. What the hell, guys? Come on.
What the hell? First of all, I had no idea that was even the connection here. Like, I thought we were just having, a good old friend on the pod. This family, this is real family, man. Said, why didn't you break that to me? You didn't even tell me.
It's top secret, and it's just so fun that we get to your point, it's been too long, but beautiful that through social media, we get to follow each other's lives and stay connected. And we saw you posting a bit on LinkedIn, man, and we reached out saying, we got to have you on the podcast to talk about your new venture. So we're going to get all into that because it's an incredible news story and something Parker and I are personally very interested in. But first, for the people that are only hearing about you for the first time and only know you as my grandbig in the fraternity, can you give us an elevator pitch on who you actually are so everybody can kind of get to know you a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into that, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. Seriously, go on your website. The first thing you see, mental fortitude. I mean, talk about something important in today's world, especially with, all the data coming out about young men suffering. I mean, it is a problem. And what you guys are doing is awesome. Uplifting people, creating the leaders of tomorrow. So, kudos to you and appreciate that. Elevator pitch on me. I can keep this short or long. I'll start by just saying I'm one of those guys that, bought a boring business and pretending to know what I'm doing along the way. How much farther back do you want me to go on that?
Keep going. I want a long ride to the top of a skyscraper here.
All right, fair enough. I'll take it back to college. So yeah, I met you guys, UMD. And after that, I actually became passionate about serving in the military, the Israeli military, which unfortunately is controversial to some, but was an incredible experience, and wanted to give back, serve before going into, the 9-to-5, so to speak, which I thought I was going into coming out of college at the time. So served in the Israeli military, lived there in Tel Aviv for 3 years, which was incredible. And then near the end of my service there, had no clue what I wanted to do. I majored in economics. So it's like, what do you do with that? I didn't learn much technical stuff, didn't know much about the professional world other than what I had learned in the military, which was obviously a lot. And I just picked up books. I fell back in love with reading. I hadn't read since probably middle school, the Harry Potter series. And I just picked up books, anything I could find, anything I could get my hands on. And found myself kind of falling in love with, kind of the investing world, call it real estate, finance, just like learning all of that stuff from scratch, all the boring stuff that for some reason I was interested in. And then moved back to New York, with my now wife, whose family lived here, and which was always the plan. And I was like, now what, what am I going to do now? And I just started networking, anyone I could talk to, I'd read the books. Now I had to meet the people. And I just talked to anyone I could, in that world. It was New York City. So a lot of people to talk to there, in mostly real estate, finance, and just seeing what I could get into, being 3 years out of college, and having, a unique perspective, but not one that everybody values, coming out of 3 years in the military, being out of the books, and Excel for a while. And I found this startup. It was a real estate startup that was building a commercial real estate platform for financing. And I was the fifth hire, which was great for me because it was, it's a tech company, you're the fifth hire, you're getting thrown in the water, and just have to learn how to swim, and learn everything A to Z, from real estate, underwriting to sales, to, closing deals, to customer service, everything, you got to do everything. As I was there, I found myself gravitating away from the real estate side and more towards the business side and the technology. And that was just, a lot more interesting to me. And so I pitched a couple, ideas, and they put me more on the business strategy side. And I met two very good friends there. And, I was there for 4 years, and we all decided to leave together and start a company in the software space called Catch, which, had the mission of protecting older adults from cyber scams. And so, that was around the time that all the LLMs were coming out, that people were really getting into AI. And we were like, all right, this is a perfect use case for AI. The backstory there is that actually one of their relatives fell victim to a cyber scam and lost $30,000. And he kind of pulled us in to help pick up the pieces, deal with Google, deal with, the FBI, the police. Didn't get the money back, unfortunately, and which is typically the case. And so we said, okay, how can we stop this, before, people lose the money, and how, using AI. So we built that up. It was extremely, difficult, starting from something from scratch. None of us were engineers. So, we just did our best. We contracted engineering. We built a product. We got it out to market. It was B2C software, so very, very difficult. And we ended up selling it. And we were working. It was kind of like an acqui-hire, and we were working for the company that bought us. And it reminded me why I wanted to venture out and do my own thing in the first place. And so then I started to consider what am I doing next? And I kind of realized at that point, I had never really been a tech guy. I'd never been a software guy. And it's like, so why am I going back there? Just because everyone else is doing it, in New York City. And then I started looking into kind of the old economy businesses, the blue collar businesses, the things that everybody needs. They're not going anywhere. And frankly, they're cash cows. And it's actually a movement that's gaining a lot of steam called ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition, which they're even starting to teach in business schools. And who's ever interested in it, there's a book called Buy Then Build, which is the Bible. It's a very, practical guide. And that's the first step to anyone who wants to start that journey. So I read that book. And then I just started, again, back to the networking, talking to brokers, talking to sellers, going on Biz Buy Sell, and the other platforms. And I found a company that, broke the golden rule. I fell in love with the business, and I fell in love with the seller during the process. I had no clue what insulation was. It was an insulation company. I didn't even know what insulation was, let alone construction in general or home services. But, I said, I'm going to do it, and I'll figure it out as I go. And that's what I did. I bought it. That was about a little over a year ago. So I've been running it since then, and we've about doubled in size. And it's been really, really, really challenging, but also incredible, just incredible learning experience, incredible growth, and, taught me a lot about myself. And I'm excited to see where we go from here. So you asked for the long version. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Sam got his very high skyscraper, and I'm glad that we had that opportunity to share the elevator pitch, because I think it's really cool. It sets the tone for this conversation. You talk about, you studied economics at Maryland. You never went into the world of economics, but I feel like no one really actually does anyway. They kind of find themselves
what does it mean?
Into business or this or that, whatever. Okay, so economics. Then you're serving in the military in Israel, and then you're going into tech, and then you're going into software, and now, obviously you're an expert in home services, particularly in insulation. It's really cool and fascinating to see your journey. And I'm curious. So, is it are you always leaning into the thing that seems sexy in your head, or something that just wow, I'm interested in this, I'm just gonna jump into it? Or is it something where you're actually sitting back and, you know what, I'm going to go work here for a year, and then I'm very tactical, very strategic in how you're approaching everything that you've done thus far?
It's a good question. I'd say, the goal starting from, honestly, when I started to read those books coming out of the military, which wasn't, that long ago, that's when I decided, okay, at some point I have to do my own thing. I became a big Warren Buffett, fan, and I was reading everything I could get my hands on him and kind of learning what he did. Frankly, his values, him and Charlie Munger, to I'd say mentors. And so the goal was always there. The goal was always to get there. What was the journey going to look like? I didn't know, but I just kind of kept my eye on the ball, and I'd say, who was it? Sam Zell said he's a professional opportunist. And I'd say that's kind of how I view it too. Just be patient, continue to learn. I mean, that's the number one thing. Learn every day, 1% better every day. And then you create your own luck, right? It's what they say, that no one's lucky. You create the opportunities. And so that's what I tried to do, just kind of staying ready.
And so I'm curious, obviously not having maybe a more traditional 9-to-5 job under your belt, do you think that was an advantage for you to be able to pull the trigger and jump and do something on your own?
Yeah, well, so I had that startup experience with which, to your point, isn't exactly, traditional
Sure.
9 to 5. I didn't have that big company experience, so I think it was a bit, I think my mosh pit of experience was an advantage because it was a different perspective. It's like they say, kind of, the best resumes are different resumes, or to put differently, I'm just going to have so many slogans I'm just going to throw out here. Another one I love is different is better than better. And so I do think that helped. I think it gave me a different perspective. I think I had skills that I gained that, just from, this diverse background that other people didn't get. And it gave me, an aptitude for risk. I think that, which is a little bit natural, but also going through the things I went through, I think helped as well. Which in this world, I mean, if you do want to reach those goals, especially independence, you got to be willing to take risks.
Definitely. And, on Elevation Nation, we have met hundreds of people who have taken significant risks to build their dreams and really not only for the future of themselves to be able to live a life where they can do what they want, spend how they want, live how they want, but also they have that appetite to take on risk, to take on fear, to take on the hard that comes with what a lot of people might say is the cool, the easy, right? And so I'm curious, Uri, from this past year in building your business from scratch, obviously you're crushing it. You said the team has doubled in size. Walk us through some of the challenges that you've faced most recently.
Oh man, how much time do we have? So yeah, like I said, I didn't even know what insulation was, and I bought an insulation company. I bought very small, so there's a lot that comes with that. It wasn't quite, the startup, starting from scratch. It was kind of this no man's land because it wasn't a startup starting from scratch, which the advantage there is you have there's very little expenses, right? You're doing a lot, obviously there's a ton of work. The work's up here, but your expenses are manageable. Here I was starting in the middle where it's like, it's the first time I was, personally responsible other than our startup, which again wasn't, a ton of expenses, where it's like, well, money's coming, going out the door. I better figure out how to get, more and more money coming in, which was definitely stressful. And then on top of that, a whole new world of people, that I didn't have experience with, but felt like that could be a competitive advantage over time. As we built out that hiring flywheel and revamping the culture. It was a bit of fantastic. It was a company with a great brand and great reputation, but it was getting a bit older, both in terms of the people, the equipment, their processes, everything. It just needed a complete refresh, including culture. So I think kind of rebuilding that culture and getting over that culture clash hump was a huge challenge. And then also going through those bumps. It was a bumpy ride. A lot, issues almost every day. There was an issue. There was a fire, and I didn't really have the knowledge to feel confident with it, but I just did it. It was kind of just like walking through fire. And every time, every step I took, it got easier and easier. It built calluses, literally in my brain. And if at the beginning, my panic every time something, the smallest thing went wrong was up here, it started just come down and down to the point where, everything was just, all right, that's a day and it's fine. And, is this going to affect us long term or not? And 99% of the time it's not affecting you long term. So it was, to answer your question, I mean, generally it was building a resilience that I didn't have before I started.
So you have this epiphany, right? You're reading these books. You could have gone real estate. You could have gone trading foreign currencies, whatever, right? You picked boring businesses, which is something Parker and I are really into lately because I foresee us doing that together one day, hopefully, God willing.
Oh, yeah.
And you start, right? You start down this path. Like you said, you fell in love with an owner and this business that you ended up acquiring. And it's the first couple weeks. What are the first few things that you even do? Like, where do you start? Shaking hands, I guess, and saying hello?
It's a great question, but yeah, that's exactly right. It was like if I wrote a checklist, number one, just learn, just do things, learn. Like literally day one, I went to the project and I said, hey guys, I'm here to help. Give me, even if you need me to just hold a heavy thing, give me something to do because I just got to learn. And in doing that, like you said, it's the people, right? Getting the people to buy in and to trust you as, who am I? I just came in. I have no clue why should they trust me? I'm asking for their, blood, sweat, and tears, why do I deserve that? And so I had to, so it was learn and build those relationships. Those were the only two things I was doing, probably for the first entire quarter.
I could just sit here and see like myself or Sam, and like if we were in your shoes, and then I'm like thinking like, oh my God, I just bought this business. How am I going to make the most use of my time? And up front, you're like, oh, we got to pull this trigger, this lever. We got to do this lever. We got to do this. To your point, it was like, I just got to sit there and give myself time to learn, to observe, to meet and gain camaraderie with your people. And I just, it's an interesting thing to hear from someone who's actually done it, rather than in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'd be like this, you got to do this, blah, blah, blah. But it's only really time where you can learn.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. We did, make changes. I mean, before I bought it, the entire company was pen and paper. They didn't, no CRM. There was no systems. I mean, the email was SBC Global. So we had to, don't get me wrong, we did have to digitize and modernize. But yeah, that came later. I mean, to your point there, it's like you get in and you're like, oh my God, there's so many things to do, but that's overwhelming. So it's like, all right, step one, first off, I want to make sure when I do something that it is the right thing to do. And how can I do that if I don't truly understand, the business? So it was like step one, learn. And then those things come, incrementally. I almost viewed it as I'm building something. And what's the most important part of building? Foundation. You need that strong foundation or it's just going to be weak over time. And I think long term, so I'm thinking decades out. I'm not thinking, this quarter or this year even. So I really wanted to make sure there was a strong foundation.
Some would argue that insulation is actually more important than foundation, but I'll leave that for debate.
I like the way you think, Sam. I like the way you think.
So, all right, you go in, you use your personality, you get some trust, and trust isn't something you can buy or flash around. Like, dude, I love the fact that you were taking pictures and you're out sweating with the dudes and getting in the weeds.
You got to earn it.
You got to earn it. And they'd been part of this company for many years. Things were done a certain way. This is Parker's specialty. Change management with people is not easy. So I imagine once you started to get trust, it was, how can I make your life easier with the systems that I'm going to put in? And then that slowly started to improve over time. But you said you've doubled your success of the business so far. What are some main things that you did? Digitizing the business, obviously, being a huge one. What have you done so far? And are you done? Is it now smooth sailing and this thing's running itself? Or what are some of the next big projects that you want to undertake?
Yeah, great questions. I mean, I think there were a couple things. One is like the whole, like digitizing the whole sales, marketing and sales motion, which is basically just getting a CRM implemented, getting automated follow-ups, all the communication stuff, especially in home services. I mean, it's true B2C. So it's that, and then it's SEO. I mean, they had nothing. One of the things I loved about the business is it was, generating good income and spending $0 on marketing, nothing, not a single dollar towards marketing. So my thought, behind the business was like, okay, there's some juice to squeeze here. So this first year, in terms of actual levers we were pulling, was getting the CRM organized and making sure we cover those weeks in the bucket, which comes through bit systems and automation, right? For the follow-ups, making sure everyone gets their touches that they need, making sure everything's organized, making sure nothing's falling through the cracks. And then SEO, which, is its own game. It's a long game. It's continuous, and so that was the important thing on that side, which is, top of funnel. And then on the other side is production, basically, which is actually serving the customers, with the number one priority being, number one, health and safety for all involved. But number two, quality of our work, which can get away from you because you also want speed. Speed is money in this industry. But if you sacrifice quality, then you are sacrificing your reputation. And if you sacrifice your reputation, you're not going to be a company for very long. So there is that little tug of war between that, quality and speed on the production side that you have to be very careful with. And that comes with culture and the right training. So we had a great foundation for people. But like I said, it was older, both in terms of the average age and average age of equipment, and so it was getting, number one. If you guys have read Jim Collins, Good to Great, timeless. Number one, get the right people on the bus. So it was finding the right people, which was hard because I'd never hired in general, actually. I never hired or managed people in general. So learning to hire and manage people, in this world was a whole new game, and it took some time. But once we got it going, then you see the flywheel start to turn, which is great. It starts to kind of move on its own. And that's where the foundation is so important, to make sure that the quality doesn't decline, while you're ramping up. And then the whole game, and home service is really anything, is okay. Top of funnel, it's a tug of war. Top of funnel and production. With top of funnel, is getting too heavy, and you see it long term. Then you got to hire more, get the right equipment, get trucks, and push on production. And if top of funnel slows down, production slows down. So it's really just managing that until it gets a little more complex. Opening new locations, maybe buying another business. Right, the long term goal for me is, well, the general idea is that every dollar, right? It's all about capital allocation. Every dollar goes towards the highest ROI. Where will I get the highest return on each dollar spent? So is it, buying another truck? Is it opening another location? Is it buying an adjacent business? So it's hard to plan ahead. I foresee, kind of a portfolio of these, types of boring businesses, so to speak, but we'll see what that means. Maybe it means staying in insulation, or maybe it means getting into, pest control, mold remediation, HVAC, plumbing, all that stuff.
So you're talking about pest control, mold remediation. We've been talking about insulation.
Music to your ears, huh?
Yeah. I mean, obviously these are boring, right? But these are things that humans obviously need, and as a result, there's a massive demand for the labor, the hard labor to do that job, right? No robot or AI is going to be able to get into the gutter and pull all those damn leaves out, or get under the roof and figure out how to keep that roof insulated. And so Sam and I, especially recently, have been very intrigued and I think the whole white-collar job world right now is very intrigued by AI and how it's going to replace a lot of the skills that white-collar workers have, right? You go to school technically to learn all these things like how to code, how to do math, science, blah, blah, blah. Now AI can just do all these technical skills, particularly in these white-collar type jobs. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the ones that are going to get affected last are what we maybe call the hard skill jobs, the blue collar jobs, the ones where you need the hands, the people to go and be there. And so, Uri, now that you're sitting here, obviously I feel like I respect the hell out of you because, you know, you've gotten ahead of this jump of where the world is going. How important are people skills now? Because Sam and I believe people skills are all that's left at this point.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like that is what I believe, you know. The one thing I had going, I didn't know what insulation was. I, you know, barely picked up a hammer in my life. Like, but the one thing I knew I had and that I was confident in was EQ, you know, people skills, communication. And I felt like this, you know, it's obviously a human intensive business, which I liked. I mean, that's why I wanted to get out of it. I couldn't flex that advantage in the software world. So to answer your question, the most important thing, it's the most important thing. Like we're always, humans need those interactions. They need those relationships. And that is something that we're not going to get from AI. So, you know, I talk about how a lot of professions are going to change with AI. And, you know, the example that I think is really interesting is like doctors, for instance. You know, if right now their main job is, you know, diagnosing, you know, and then bedside and you know, patient relationships is like down here, that's completely going to switch. Like they're not going to AI is going to diagnose, and all that's going to be left is the relationship, which will be so important. I mean, the patients will need that. So to answer your question, people skills, that's what everyone needs to be learning and really, you know, getting deep to pull out of themselves. I mean, that's what's going to remain.
Well, I know Sam's going to jump in with another question, but I want to pop in. So you're saying people skills, that's what people need to learn. To your people on your team, how do you teach it?
That's a great question. Communication. So I pull, I mean, this is just one aspect, right? It's almost like layers, like, you know, again, let's get back to building, right? You're building floors, you know, foundation and then floors. I mean, number one, empathy. I think that's the most important thing, like really being able to emotionally connect with someone, put yourself in their shoes, understand what they're feeling and why. But the thing that, you know, I've focused on a lot with my team, and I think gets lost in a lot of organizations, especially as you grow, is communication. And Reed Hastings, I think that's his name, Netflix CEO, or Netflix founder, you know, his term is radical candor. If you're feeling something, you know, just get it out there. Just get it out there, and that makes all the difference. And so that is our policy, you know, at Nealon, is open communication. Right, and we talk so much, and I think a lot of the guys have learned just from that, because, you know, they don't come from worlds where, like, you feel something, you say it, you know, and you don't hold on to it and create this tension. No, you get it out, you talk about it, and even just talking, having those open, honest conversations, it's a workout for you know, that skill. You know, just like anything else, it's a skill that you have to exercise, work out. And so I think one of the big things that we do is just that open communication, having those hard conversations, you know, out, you know, get it out there. I think they learn a lot from that.
It's so important, these human skills in the past, right? The past 50 years, the most successful people had those people skills, in my opinion. And now I think we're seeing, there was the past couple decades, there was this transition to super rich technical skills. Who can code? Can you do Tableau and analytics, right? Like, what platforms and softwares do you know how to use? And so everyone's scrambled to try to learn these skills that now are being knocked to the wayside. We're seeing in white collar jobs, they're not important anymore. And so Parker and I have continued to double down. And that's why, like, honestly, I think the podcast and what we've talked about was a couple years ahead of its time of, oh, mindset and mental fortitude and emotional intelligence, like everyone would say, no shit, that's important. Now I think people are saying, oh shit, that's important, right? Like, absolutely, it's the only thing now that can differentiate us in this job market, in this world. The people that have these technical skills that got them to where they are, awesome. That now is going to be 100x, and the playing field is leveled with AI within the last 12 months. So what's going to happen in the next 6? And so Parker and I, we've been trying this new phrase that we love here at Elevation Nation. We call it our version of AI, authentic intelligence. How do you teach people to be authentically intelligent? And we break that down into one of the things you said, communication. So we have them as the 3 M's. Your mindset, knowing who you are, yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, having a strong mindset, mental fortitude to get through tough times. Messages, how you communicate both upwards and downwards and with yourself to communicate more effectively. And then moments. Where are those moments that you can inject authenticity, your personality, and who you are into your day-to-day life? And so we're bringing that to, as we speak around the country, to camps, to corporations, high schools, and colleges, because that is maybe the only thing, and who knows, that could get taken over by AI too. Like, the only thing left, that and physical labor. So I think you're hitting on both of them, which is great.
It's so important. I mean, forget profession. Yeah, we all need to make money, sure, but forget that for a second. I mean, that what you're describing is the most important thing for living, and living a peaceful, happy life. That, like, being confident with yourself, which is basically mental fortitude. If you have that and you know that you can get through anything, I've been studying throughout this challenging year. I studied a lot of stoicism, which is a lot of what you're describing, as well as the first thing on your list, mindset. I studied a lot of evolutionary psychology because I wanted to understand how my brain works, how the chemicals work, why am I feeling something at a certain time, and I think that should be taught so much more, deeply and throughout. I mean, middle school, high school, college level. People understand so little about themselves, and we're all playing. Even though we have these relationships, we're all playing the single player game. We're only in our heads. We all perceive the world, but we're in our heads. So you really have to have a good grasp on what is happening up there, because if you can do that, if you have a better understanding of it, then you have more control over it. And that is so important for life, let alone a profession or whatever, professional goals you have.
I think a lot of it comes down to purpose. Like, when you see yourself, what is the purpose in which, why I do something, right? Why am I spending my time on this? What is my personal incentive? What is my, and the purpose changes obviously, but it allows you to have a guiding light, a guiding framework to go after. Uri, for you, you are building a company that I'm sure you have to spend a lot of your time and your days, maybe every day, spending time on. Right now, you have a family, right? You've really you're reading a lot, you're learning a lot, but at the end of the day, it needs to come around to one purpose, one point of everything. So in this moment in your life, what is your purpose that gets you going each and every day?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's probably a list of things. Like, when I think about, why do I want to build this? The thing that I always fall back on, which is, why am I an entrepreneur? Why do I want to build something? Is independence. Independence is very important to me, because I want to do the things I want to do every day. We have one life. I want to do the things I want to do every day with the people I want to do it with. That's it. And I don't want to have to, miss, big childhood events, my kids' events or, dance recitals because my boss is telling me I have to be somewhere at a certain time. So family is the most important thing to me. And for me to get, independence financially, is what allows me to the freedom, to do everything that I want to do, with family, for my own mental health, for my own fitness, and any goals I want to pursue. I want the freedom to do that. So to answer your question, independence and freedom, I think is, in terms of building that's the goal.
Obviously resonates a lot with Parker and myself, in addition to Elevation Nation and the podcast and speaking. This part gives us fulfillment, right? I think everyone can probably assume this. It's not giving Parker and I financial freedom at this point in time, right? So we do this to fill our cups and to fill our souls. But under this entrepreneurial venture that we are on is another underlying venture of how do we build freedom for our lives, right? How do we turn this or something else into our entrepreneurial financial freedom so we can do exactly what we want to do all the time, which is podcast, have good conversations with people, speak and mentor young people, which we're kind of doing already. And so we're in this weird, interesting spot where it's how do we find that sweet spot between them? And it's one of the reasons why we've loved having folks like yourself as of recent come on the podcast and share their stories. We've had now 2 or 3 other entrepreneurs and elevators come and share how they had normal jobs and normal trajectory and decided they wanted that freedom and to take the chance and take the risk and acquired, whether it was a pet grooming business or a metal stamping business or even dog walking businesses, right? We've had it all. And so I just commend you. You asked, or Parker and I asked, what's next? You said maybe we'll buy another adjacent business. I'm going to just throw this idea out there. What's next is maybe mentoring 2 handsome young entrepreneurs that would love to learn a little bit more about buying a boring business, because that is something where I think people are excited about it but scared. And having an awesome mentor like you who has those people skills, I think could be a huge benefit to the community. So I'm just really proud of what you're doing and excited for the future. And now we get to learn from you, which I'm just excited for.
I also want to add, too, I feel like the world is going to continue to move this way anyway. To Sam's point, I feel like back to our conversation about AI, as AI, more people are going to want to get into the boring business world. People are going to want to find ways to make money. They're going to have to, right, for their livelihood. And so, Sam, to your point, I think it would be stupid to not start thinking about what are those types of businesses that you can get into that will be able to sustain you, not only in income, but give you purpose over a long period of time. So, Uri, I know you're back. We got you. We're going to head to our next section. I think it's a perfect transition point for us. It's our rapid fire. We're going to throw some fast questions your way. First thing that comes to mind, you got to spit it out candidly. Rapid candor.
All right. Fair enough. Pressure's on.
Mr. Hastings would be proud.
All right.
Okay. You get home from a day, you got yourself dirty, top to bottom, mud all over you. You come through the door. What is that one food that just will give you so much delight, so much satisfaction when you sit down at your dinner table?
You said to throw one out. Pizza. I'm a sucker for pizza, but I will. Did I lose you guys? Can you still hear me? Oh,
we can hear you.
Yeah, pizza. But I do intermittent fasting, so I eat a couple handful of nuts at around 3:30, and then do a bit of a later dinner. But yeah, to answer your question, pizza. It's a long rapid fire.
No, it's good. I like it. All right. You ended up falling in love with this insulation business, but I know you were crunching numbers across a plethora of different industries. What were some other funky front runners that you were exploring?
Good question. There was what was it? It was like a big commercial metal hauling company, with hardcore machinery and stuff. Again, know nothing about that. on the same token, junk, one of those junk luggers. It was one that caught my eye, which I'm still interested in, was parking lot painting. Talk about niche, a parking lot painting company. And
What
then
do
I
they
looked
paint?
at
The lines?
class of dry cleaners as well.
They're just painting
They
the
paint
parking
the
spots?
lines, and properties need it about once a
That
year.
makes perfect
They're
sense.
painting the
Yeah.
spots, but also signs. The word stop. Yeah, you wouldn't think about it. It's those little things, those little niches. But yeah,
Totally. I love it.
That sounds fun. Until you have to do I just watched these videos on the internet of the people who paint the fields at the NFL games or the baseball stadiums. I was like, that's a high stress job actually. They cannot mess up, and I imagine the people in the parking lots can't mess up either.
Yeah.
All right, last one.
Because go
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say I drove into, I think it was a CVS parking lot, honestly a couple weeks ago, and I saw them painting the parking lot, which I had never seen before, ever. Even but after seeing looking at the business, that was the first time I saw it, so I thought that was funny and interesting.
That's awesome. All right, last rapid fire. I got a lot of books. Most of these books came from elevators recommending that Sam and I read, and Elevation Nation read that book. So what is one book recommendation that you have for Elevation Nation? The one book that I know you said you had a few, Buy Then Build, and what is the one book that you'd recommend to anyone that they can use to elevate their life?
Yeah, this probably changes by week, but right now, Daily Stoic by Ryan Deck. Absolutely. Everybody in the league copy of that and should read it every night. Or 200 pages in it. Every night.
So I did the last 2 years I got the Daily Stoic Journal. I don't know, have you done that one yet?
No.
Okay. So that might be coming next for you. It's just one prompt every day around Stoicism that I'd answer. And it was just the perfect way to ground myself before starting the workday. So I did that for 2 years. And yeah, I think if you're enjoying the Daily Stoic, you'll like the journal part with it for sure.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. That's great. Yeah.
So, Uri, we're now at our final question. Every single person who's come on Elevation Nation on our podcast has answered this, as well as the thousands of people that we've spoken to around the globe. They're all united by, of course, their strong mindset and how they elevate their lives every single day. And so we ask everyone, what is their mental motto? That's a phrase, a quote, a slogan that embodies who they are at their core and how they live their life. You've thrown out a fair amount of cliches for us, but is there one that truly is in your heart and really embodies who you are and how you go about life?
Can I do two or it's only one?
You can give me two. I'll allow it. Your family.
Well, I'll start with one. It's not even a slogan. It's like my keys to happiness, which my grandfather kind of passed down. So it's be thankful for what you have, be the best you can be at everything you do, and be kind, giving, and generous unto others. I mean, that's something I literally think about every single day. And if you do those three things, you will have a happy life. I guarantee it. But more of a slogan. We'll see if there's any Batman fans on the podcast. It's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you.
Those are some great mental mottos. I think we all can learn from both of those. And, of course, mental mottos passed down from generation to generation are even more beautiful. So I appreciate you sharing that one with us. And like I said, Parker and I look up to you, whether you know it or not. It's so cool that you have taken the leap to start this next chapter of your life. It's something that hopefully one day we can join you on this incredible, crazy roller coaster that you are on and take freedom and independence over our lives. And I'm just so proud of all that you have done. Thank goodness we finally get to welcome you into Elevation Nation. It's about damn time. And welcome to our little community here.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. It really was a blast and long overdue. And I'm pumped for you guys. I'm cheering for you guys, and please use me as a resource for your journey. Yeah, and I'm excited. Let's get this back on track.
Hell yeah.
Love it. Until next week, Elevation Nation. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Elevation Nation. If you enjoyed our conversation, hit that subscribe button to get notified when we release a new episode. If you would like to join Elevation Nation or get more information about the nation, please visit our website at www.elevationnation.io. Until next week, Elevation Nation, peace.